Alright, there's a video about how to recognize which one of the three buttons you have to use. On your calculator there are three buttons, the sine, the cosine and the tangent. And for all three of them you use different sides. Here, this is the rules in general. The tangent is the opposite side divided by the adjacent side. For the sine you use the opposite side of the hypotenuse, and for the cosine you use the adjacent side and the hypotenuse. Now if you want to know an easy way to memorize this you can write down as TOA, because the tangent is the opposite side divided by the adjacent side, so TOA. Here you have SOH, and here you have the C for the cosine, and then AH. So you can make a word out of this. The word you can make is this one. It's SOHCAHTOA. That's a word you can remember, and then maybe that helps to remember what is what. I mean, you can also just memorize it like that, right? Now this example exercise I made over here, I want to know angle B. So, and there are two angles, there are two sides given. So what you should do is looking from this perspective, so from this angle. So pretend like you're here, you're in this corner here. We're going to see what side is that and what side is that. Because one of the sides is the opposite side, one of the sides is the adjacent side, and one of the sides is the hypotenuse. Well, the longest side, that's this one, that's always the hypotenuse. Right? And the hypotenuse is always on the other side of the 90-degree angle. And then these two, these are either the opposite side or the adjacent side, depending on which angle you want to calculate. If you want to calculate this angle, then this is the opposite side because it's on the other side. Right? So in this case, we use the opposite side and the hypotenuse. So that means that we have to use the sine, because the sine uses the opposite side and the hypotenuse. Now if you wanted to calculate angle C, if you wanted to calculate that angle, then this side would not be the opposite side, but then it would be the adjacent side, because the word adjacent means that it's attached to the angle. So if you're in this position, if you're in that angle, then this side is, well, next to where you're standing, right? So that's the adjacent side then. But now if you calculate this angle, we use the opposite side and the hypotenuse. So to calculate angle B, we do sine minus 1, because if you calculate an angle, you always do sine minus 1. And then 6 divided by 9. Now you can type that into your calculator and then you get the answer. Right? But it's important that you know this. Typing it in, I think everybody can do that. I have another example for the people that are interested, otherwise you can just stop watching this video. I also want to explain how to calculate a side one more time, because here we calculated a angle, and now we're going to calculate a side. I want to calculate this side, EF, and I know that side, and I already know the angle. So we're going to use this side because we already know it. And we have to use this side on our calculation also, because that's the one we want to calculate. And we want to use that angle. Now if you're looking at this angle, then this side is the hypotenuse, right, because it's the longest side. And then this side is the adjacent side, because it's next to the angle that we're going to use, right? It's attached to the angle. It's one of the lines that makes the angle. And this is the opposite side. Now earlier I wrote down a number here, but I erased it, so yeah, this is the opposite side. So now we have adjacent and hypotenuse. That means that we use the cosine, which is this button here, right? It's COS, but it stands for cosine. If you want to know one more time what the whole words are, I mean, it's not really that important, but this is the tangent. The sin is short for sine, like that, and this is short for cosine. So these words are pretty abstract. You probably have no idea why they are like that, but they're just called that. So yeah. In this case, we have to use the cosine. So if you want to calculate a side, then I write down the cosine of 62 equals the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse, which is EF. So what you do is you just basically take this rule here, right? It says cosine angle is this divided by that, and you fill in what you know. If you know the angle, you fill it in there. If you know the adjacent side, you fill it in there. And if you know the hypotenuse, you fill it in there. Then we have this over here, and the EF is the thing that we want to calculate. Now you always do either times or divided by. If you want to figure out what to do, you can use an example exercise. I always use this one. Yeah, this one is correct, right? 12 divided by 4 is 3. But I don't know the number at the bottom here. Now if I don't know this number, I can do 12 divided by 3 to get 4, right? So here I have to do 8 divided by cosine 62. And then that's EF. You can always check if your answer makes sense, because the hypotenuse needs to be the biggest side of the triangle. So if you type it in wrong, and let's say I make a mistake, I do, instead of 8 divided by, I make a mistake and I do 8 times the cosine of 62. Then the answer says 3.8 rounded off. Well, then you know it's wrong, because the hypotenuse needs to be the biggest side, right? So it doesn't make any sense if I do times. So I need to do 8 divided by the cosine of 62. And then it says 17, and this could be 17, right? That makes sense. If this is 8, then this could be 17. So this is how this works. Hopefully it made sense to everyone watching. So thank you, bye-bye.